Hello and welcome. It is All For United. We are back once again to talk all things Manchester United. What a surprise. If you're here for something else, unfortunately, you've come to the wrong place. So kindly exit out the door to your left. If you're here for United, though, so are we. So let's all look forward to the next sort of 50, 60 minutes where we will be chatting everything, especially the European side of things. We'll just have a quick run round and say hello to everyone because we've organised and assembled a fantastic panel. Not quite the Avengers, but pretty close. Mr. Neville, how the devil are you?
Yeah, all good. Thank you, Barry. Yeah, good to be back on again.
Lovely. Yeah, good to be able to catch you down. He's had a bit of a social life as our John lately. So nice to be able to get him back on. And of course, Dan, lovely to have you back as well down there in the corner. Thanks for joining us. How's things with you? He's muted. There you go. Try.
Yeah, good to be back. Thanks for having me on.
No, brilliant. Pleased to have you back as well. And of course, as ever, it is the voice of reason, Mr. Stuart Willie. How are you, sir?
Always miserable, as you know. So, no, I'm all right, actually, this week. Not bad. Yeah, I've had a pretty good week. So, always good. Always good.
Well, maybe the results are a little something to do with that. So we'll run around and obviously we'll just get initial sort of feelings on the situation. Obviously, for myself personally, looking at the game, you're looking at it at 1-0 and you're just thinking, we're not quite getting there, are we? It was a big night. And it all kicked off with obviously the memorial to Bobby Charlton, which I'm sure we shall come to in a bit. But with that aside, just for the moment, John, what was your initial take on the result and the match?
Yeah, I think it was important for a couple of reasons. You know, the fact that we were, we'd not got any points from the first two games in the Champions League. So, I think if we'd, still been on 0 or only 1 point, we'd have essentially been, right off the rest of the group stage completely. But that win sort of given us a glimmer of hope sort of thing of, potentially getting second place. Just sort of comes down to these two away games that we've got now, which are going to be very tricky. But I think the other thing was, just to really get the win, for such a, pivotal, emotional night was probably the more important thing. I think from my point of view is more of a relief that they managed to, get over the line for Sir Bobby's sake more than anything.
No, absolutely, and that was the big thing. It very much felt like not necessarily a must win, but definitely not a must. Definitely not a must lose. Couldn't have that happen. So good stuff there, Dan. How about for you? How did the results sit with you? I mean, again, it's Copenhagen. It was a home game. Did you think it was just that the atmosphere of the situation got to people, the pressure there, or do you think perhaps we've just underestimated Copenhagen a bit there?
To be honest, probably a bit of both. I think the atmosphere and the occasion was huge, and I think they all knew that. And I think first half we looked really shaky, and it was partly the atmosphere, but then I do think they were probably better than what we maybe gave them credit for as well. And there could have been a couple of goals up early on, couldn't there? But I think second half, once Eriksen come on, that we played better, and I think we deserved it in the end.
No, it seemed absolutely fair to me. And Stu, your initial sort of take on it. I mean, obviously Simon's spoken about Onana and Maguire. We're definitely going to touch on them as we move through the evening. But your initial thoughts, 3 points on the board. And as Simon says, they all look the same on the board, really. It's irrelevant how they get there.
Yeah, a win's a win. But look, it's worth pointing out, by the way, that City drew away at Copenhagen last season, 1 apiece. So they're no mugs. And football has changed a hell of a lot over 20 years, 30 years. Long are the days where you would go away to a Turkish team and beat them comfortably, or a Norwegian team or a Danish team or a Swedish team. It doesn't happen anymore. The young boys gave City a decent game last night. I know City came out 3-1 winners, but they still gave them a decent game of football. So wherever you are in the globe at the minute, because of of where we are with nutrition and the way that sportsmen and athletes look after themselves nowadays, you are going to get a much closer game. So I always find it laughable, really, and ironic where people say, "Oh, we should be winning by 4, 5, 6-0." Well, you can say that, but you guys aren't on the pitch playing the game. You're not there to understand the game. So, I actually thought we would win 2-0, but Copenhagen were a much better outfit than I gave them credit for. It's a lot of these players, they got their Concalves, didn't they, from Porto? I mean, he's a wonderful talent. A lot of top European clubs were looking at him, but didn't roll the dice. Copenhagen did. We had an exceptional game. They've got the beauty of that squad is they're massively balanced and more balanced and better balanced than we were. And on the night, it was proven. But you've also got to take into account that a lot of these players may not ever play at Old Trafford again, and so players do lift their tempo and lift, and playing at Old Trafford lifts their spirits. And look, I like nothing more as a player going into somebody else's backyard, turning them over and sticking 2 fingers up to the supporters. I love that. And Copenhagen, that's what they were about. We're going to come into your backyard and we're going to do you over. And they really gave a good account of themselves. There were some notable, impressive performances we'll touch on, later. And there was a notable body on there that perhaps shouldn't have been on there for 90 minutes, which I'm sure we'll touch on later. So, look, the lads are right. Simon's absolutely right. 3 points looks the same, wherever you go. If we manage to beat Copenhagen, it's a tough ask, by the way, at their place. I think they're unbeaten in their place so far. But if we do beat them, we've then got to go away to Galatasaray. Now, beating Galatasaray on their patch is going to be extremely difficult. But if we can get those 2 victories, pretty much, providing Bayern beat Galatasaray in the next match, then our game against Bayern Munich will be, it won't mean anything because Bayern will top the group with 12 points. And then, we're all playing for second, aren't we? So, that was my take on it. I could be a bit more critical, but I won't be because we won. So it's all good.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
Sure it's coming. You can feel it bubbling. But we shall see. Simon's already come in and he's reminded us all that he is a blue. But they're possibly right. We're not going to win the Champions League. We shall see. It's not over yet. You've got to play it. You never know. Strange things have happened. It is a positive step forwards. The players aren't seasoned in this contest. I like the way you managed to throw that shade in there, Simon. You've done very well there. Nice way of saying that we've not been there for quite a while. Well played. And yes, the referee shouldn't have done the 90 minutes. We shall find out who that is as we get round to Stu a bit later on. But John, you had the privilege, and it was a privilege, I think, on this particular day to be there on Tuesday and be a part of the match. And I suppose, really, more poignantly, as you mentioned, to have that opportunity to take part in the memorial. Now, I tweeted, there's so much this club's doing wrong at the moment. So many things that have happened. There's been terrible communication in various different guises and all manner of things that are going wrong. But that tribute to Sir Bobby, the lone piper coming out, it had shades of royal funerals and such like. There's something about those bagpipes that when they're just solo like that, just gets you right in the feels. And that moment as well, playing, we'll never die, keeping that red flag flying high was just unreal. A member from the youth team, Dan Gore, obviously the captain, going back to the fact that Bobby Charlton was a part of that youth team, that great team from the 50s and the Busby Babes. And also Stepney as well, so they had both of the generations, people that played with him and people that represented what it was that Bobby Charlton helped to keep through this club. What was it like to be there? Because I'm not ashamed to admit there was tears in my eyes watching that on telly, but I can only imagine there must have just been grown men sobbing everywhere and handkerchiefs out and everything, because it was just one of those days, one of those moments.
Yeah, I just managed to hold it together. My mum was stood next to me, and I could see she was filling up once the bagpipes started playing. It was a very, very nice moment that was. They replicated it from when they had it in 2008 for the 50th anniversary of Munich, and 94 when Matt Busby died as well. So that was very very poignant, and like you say, it was nice how they had the sort of past, present, and future of United that was sort of walked out and together and laid the wreath. So yeah, it was very fitting, I think, and very nicely, very nice the way that they did it.
No, absolutely, I completely agree. And Dan, I mean, this is the thing that steps out for me. You know, Simon's already told us he's a Blue, and he's put Bobby was a gentleman, an amazing football player, one of a few who survived. Sorry, we all must show respect for his passing, and that is what is just so absolutely prevalent. There's clubs that are having a minute's silence and singing "There's only one Bobby Charlton," and he never even touched their club. He wasn't anywhere near playing for them. He was Manchester United through and through. It's absolutely unreal. What's your thoughts on Bobby Charlton and what he means to this football club?
Yeah, I mean, from a very young age, I just remember my dad showing me videos of the Busby Babes, him, George Best, the Holy Trinity, and just growing up around the history of the club. And for me, I've put it all over social media the past few days, and that I don't think anyone gave any more for the club than him. I think, you've got the big names over the years, but for me, Sir Bobby embodied everything that was good about this club. And I know you touched on it, Barry, that the club get a lot of stuff wrong at the moment. There's a lot of stuff going wrong, but the one thing that was a constant and that was always carried themselves so well and, with so much pride, and that was Sir Bobby. And I'm not ashamed to admit I've shed a few tears over the past few days, and it was emotional the other night. And it was such a fitting send-off for such a wonderful player and, more importantly, a wonderful human.
Absolutely agree. Simon saying, look at what he did for England. Stu, you pride yourself. You're not backwards and coming forwards about it. You're old school. Bobby Charlton was old school. It's been interesting listening to the various tributes that have been mentioned time and again. Gary Neville's talking about a game, and forgive me, the game slips my mind as to who they were playing, but I think he said we were like 5 or 6-0 up. He'd just come on, and he's obviously trying to show himself, and he just goes straight through one of their players, and Bobby pulls him aside from the dressing room. And that's another thing. Getting in the dressing room is not an easy thing to do. Fergie didn't just allow people to come wandering in, which just shows the respect that obviously Fergie had for Bobby, as he's mentioned many times over the years. And he just takes Gary Neville to one side and says, that's not what we do here, son. We don't need to do that. We don't need to be taking the mickey and going in like that. We show respect. And that's just what he had. He had this unbelievable iron will to win. And the fact that he was a midfielder and he has been the top goal scorer for England until, this year. Well, not this year, obviously, because Rooney did it before then, but in this decade, certainly. And he was also that for Man United as well. Ryan Giggs took over his appearances, but was nowhere near the amount of goals that Bobby managed to score. And of course, Rooney did manage to do them all, but not in as many appearances. So it was a very, very strange situation to be looking at this midfielder. And he did all of this with a leather ball that, quite frankly, would probably break the feet of most people if they tried to kick it now. So just try and sum up what Bobby Charlton is to this football club, because I can't think of anybody better to do that here than you.
Yeah, the interesting thing. Look, my lad was there Tuesday because he has my ticket now, so I get relegated to the television, and he's only 22. And when he was growing up, and I was talking to him about Manchester United, and he said to me, he said, "Dad, years ago this was." He said, "Dad, why did you support Manchester United?" And I explained to him it was my uncle Brian. He took me to watch Wolves in 1977. When I was 10 years old, I was fortunate enough to be at an event with my uncle, and Sir Bobby was there. And so I've met Bobby on a few occasions anyway. But he always he was always a humble kind of guy. He grew up in, humble beginnings, I guess, just like most professional footballers of today. But he actually understood what football meant, and he understood what playing for Manchester United meant, and he understood what playing for the fans of and supporters of Manchester United, what that meant, and not just in Manchester, not just in the UK, but globally as well. And he was, I always found him very unassuming as a character, very quiet, a little bit like myself, very within myself, very introvert, until you step over that white line and then you become a fucking animal. And you have to be an animal when you're playing football. But he did it in a peacock-like fashion. So he would stand there, like he was the king of the field, way, way, way before Eric Cantona came, with the collar up and that. He had all that about him, but he didn't need the collar. He didn't need the show. It was all about, look, when Sir Bobby takes the pitch, it's like, wow, Jesus, But this is a guy that could strike the ball equally as good with his left peg as his right peg. His passing was sublime. His dribbling was sublime. Wasn't the most rapid as the players, but he could get around people, no problem. He had an eye for goal. He had an eye for the pass, but he had that unequivocal kind of hold, a mesmeric hold on people, including me as a fan. I never saw him play live. I think he finished in 73 away to Chelsea, if my memory serves me correctly. So I never saw him live. I never saw him kick a ball live. But he meant a lot to people of my era. And I think he means a lot to the younger generation now. They've been poisoned so much. So what with FIFA? They've been poisoned with who they can pack nowadays. I've got Messi. I've got Ronaldo. Mate, if you got Bobby Charlton today and you had that type of figure today, that type of will to win, which was probably greater than Roy Keane's, really, then you wouldn't be interested in Messi and you wouldn't be interested in Ronaldo. You're not interested in people who can dribble past 5 players, or because Charlton could do that, but he chose to do it the right time, not the wrong time in games. So I totally agree, and I think we need a figurehead. We had it with Sir Bobby. We've got it with Sir Alex to an extent, but we had it with Sir Bobby. He was part of the Holy Trinity, but yet Best and Law never really commanded the respect level that Sir Bobby does. And actually, his brother Jack was equally held in high esteem. And I think, a part of Manchester United has passed away with him. But I just hope that the players, they talk about it, and in the first half of Copenhagen, I didn't see anything from them would suggest that Bobby Charlton meant something to Manchester United the way that we played. And it shouldn't take a second half or a half-time bollocking from the gaffer to bring them out of their shell, so to speak. But it's hard to sum up, really. I think what Bobby would have meant to everybody. But for me personally, and you're right, by the way, all these players who think they can whip and dip a football, try doing it with something that maybe you're kicking £10 worth of weight with boots that are probably £1.50. None of these 250 gram or 20 gram boots or whatever they are nowadays. Soaking wet, pitches that cut up, your legs are sapping, and you can still hit a 20-yard rocket 78 minutes into a game, to win it. That won't happen today, would never happen today. The players just aren't made like they were back then. I would love to see somebody like Sir Bobby play today, because I think the players of today, who everybody rates, would get a lesson on what actually football's all about. So, real shame, real shame.
Certainly is. I don't know. There was this wonderful sort of quote I think that was attributed to him about the ability that United had. They could pass the ball. You've got your Best, you've got your Law, you've got all of those sort of people, and he just ultimately said, and at the end of the day, if all of that doesn't work, just give it to me and I'll smack it in from 30 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
That's literally what he would do. An absolute legend, and without a doubt, someone who we are going to miss at this football club. I think more so than even we know now. NT saying best of all legends for United. There's just something about Sir Bobby that sets him apart as a human being. Ever said when he first met him and shook his hand, he could feel the legend that he was, and he just was. There was that brilliant cartoon from the Guardian, I think, that everybody saw as well, where it just sort of showed how Munich weighed on his mind. Sometimes he said it was just like a light brush on a otherwise happy day, and other days when it was all consuming and he felt that guilt. But my goodness, how he channeled that guilt into recreating a football club that we can be proud of today. And there we go. So again, we said it on the weekend when it happened, first of all, but all of our thoughts are with the family of Bobby Charlton, and he will never, ever be forgotten, which is fabulous news. We move to Mr. Maguire, because it took about 70 odd minutes, but we finally got the goal. And Mike, I was so pleased, John. I can't tell you. When you see the name as well, Harry Maguire popping up, this man we talk about how Bobby Charlton portrayed himself and how he behaved with dignity and class. That's something that Harry Maguire has done just brilliantly over the last 2 years, especially. And he steps up, nods the ball into the back of the net, pulls the team kicking and screaming over the winning line, just about. We'll get to Onana's help with that as well. But Harry Maguire, what a goal. And how many rows did you jump down?
Well, none actually, because I'm on the front anyway. So
what?
I'll be on the pitch. But
careful, you get banning orders for that.
It was it was a great goal, wasn't it? It was a textbook, centre halves attacking header, down into the ground, textbook, and keeper had no chance. But it was you could sort of feel the relief when that went in. It was very a great moment, and it was a very, very good cross from Ericsson, who sort of gave us a lot more impetus once he came on at the start of the second half. But it seems to have been the plan that's worked at the last few games or so. Just kick it up to the big fella, and we'll find the net.
Absolutely, and it was a stupid header, Dan, but he got himself down there, got the power that was required on the ball, got it past the goalkeeper. And Dave's literally just put it here. Big respect for Harry Maguire, how he's turned things around and shown why we bought him in the first place. I'd argue he already showed us why we bought him in the first place. He just had a little dip, and looking at some of the statistics that have been thrown about, that's going to really annoy Stu, but still, looking at some of the statistics that I saw was more to do with how he'd improved his passing over some of the last matches. And I think maybe that's what was missing, because I don't think really his defensive quality has ever been really that much in question. When it has happened, it's usually been a bit of unluck, lack of luck, or sometimes just being caught out of position, which will happen in defence. You're never going to be 100% perfect all the time.
Yeah, no, I think obviously when the cross come in, I don't think there was a person on the pitch better equipped to be nodding that ball in than Harry Maguire, to be honest. I think when the ball went in, I'm thinking Maguire needs to be on the end of this, and I think he's played well the past few games, but I just think, the kind of tactics we're playing at the moment, where it's let's lump the ball in the box. We've played Sheffield United, we've played Copenhagen, Brentford. I just think, we're doing well. We're getting over the line just about, but we've got a big game Sunday, and I think we're probably going to have to change our tactics and play a lot better and have an actual game plan. Otherwise, we'll get found out against the better sides.
Absolutely. Stu, one of the stats that's been rolled out was this one about how we'd won 15 out of 16 games with Harry Maguire in, but only won something like 24, 25 out of the 42 that he hadn't started. And yeah, it was an interesting one. You know, I don't often listen to what Mark Goldbridge has got to say, but he made an interesting point about you can't compare the two because it's not 16 games against 16 games, which ones you choose. There was the argument about who's he starting against, you know, the level of opposition could also be a factor. But it doesn't change the fact, Stu, does it, that with Harry Maguire in place since October of last year, the results have been way more positive than they have been without Harry Maguire.
Yeah, and that's coming from somebody who knows F all about football. No, Goldbridge never pulled on a professional shirt in his footballing life. He's just decided to go and search some stats and decide to make a play of it. That's the problem you have with the likes of United Stand and other fan channels. There isn't a player on the planet in global football that would be able to take the criticism, the abuse that Harry Maguire has sustained over two and a bit years and still played with pride when he put that red shirt on. It means a lot, everything to him to put that red shirt on. When we talk about Sir Bobby Charlton now, don't jump on me in the comments or anyone else because I'm not comparing them whatsoever. What I'm comparing is mental strength. And that's key, mental strength. You know, I always say, you know, football's 90% brain, 10% your legs, and it's true. You know, your brain decides what you're going to do, your legs just get you there and facilitate what you want to do. That's what football's about. Now, people are making this comparison at the moment in terms of how he used to play and how he is playing, the way that Ten Hag would like him to play, and the way that Ten Hag wants him to play is to progress the ball aerially, maybe not, you know, on the ground, which is making Amrabat look a little bit not used at the minute because there are occasions, if you watch Amrabat, particularly against Sheffield United, he'd be coming and showing for the ball, and we could have dropped a 5-6 yard ball into him, and then he would have progressed it that way. But Maguire wasn't able to do that because he's following instructions by the gaffer. I don't particularly like. I think you need to mix it up, and I think to get the very best out of Amrabat, we need to do that. But what you've got in Maguire right now, somebody said, I think it was Dan, somebody said, or John, he's got a swagger about him. He has got a swagger about him, but he's always had this swagger about him. He just became fearful of touching the football. There was a point in time 6 months ago, he became fearful of touching that football. But you've got to, I always say, play yourself into the game. And he does. He's played himself back into it. Now, Jarvis has made a great point, and you know, me and Jarvis have spoken about this privately. Did Ten Hag pull off a masterpiece by signing? I actually think that wasn't Ten Hag's first thought when signing Johnny Evans, and I think it's just a happy coincidence that Maguire's best times in the Premier League were alongside Johnny Evans. Having that familiarity alongside him in training will help, because as a centre half, partnerships is absolutely key. Knowing what your partner is going to do, where he's going to be, where he can cover you, where he won't cover you. He's not going to head the ball, but I am, etc. But you know, he may be able to dribble it out, whereas I won't. That's really important, because that's the real dynamic that helps the centre half become more comfortable. I just think at the minute, and the lads are talking about it in the in the comments, I just think in a minute, we're not seeing the true Harry Maguire, because he's always been there. Ten Hag's just telling him a way that he wants him to play, and at this point in time, it's successful. But don't be fooled. Don't anyone think that that Ten Hag has made him this new player. Only Harry Maguire can do that. So Harry Maguire has been looking at what Ten Hag wants him to do. And this is, by the way, quite a critical point. He's been looking at what he wants to do, and he's been working on this in training and to become the player he is. Now, is it Simon, the City fan? Is it sustainable? Well, time will tell. I think it will be. But, you know, we will see how far Harry's confidence is, or how far he feels he's come when he's up against Erling Haaland. I think it'd be perfect for Haaland, quite frankly, because Haaland's big, strong, and Maguire's big and strong, and if he can get a hold of him, which I believe he can, Haaland might have a difficult time on Sunday. Having said that, Haaland might be able to get the better of him and score a hat-trick. Who knows? We won't know till what's it, 3:30, isn't it? Kickoff Sunday. It's a strange time. We won't know till the match end. But I, for one, have always defended him. And I felt sometimes that the stick and and the abuse he had was just ridiculous. But we will see. Let's see what happens. Simon's right. He's given a different type of play to Maguire, and Maguire's at this point in time stepped up. But we'll see where we are Sunday. Be a good barometer for us actually as fans. I mean, we haven't played well this season at all, and I think if you kind of look back at where we are, the sensible footballer in me would say we'll get absolutely battered Sunday, and that's just understanding football. But I'd like to think we could do something Sunday, but who knows? Time will tell.
Any truth in this?
What's that? Sorry. Yes, I think. Yes, I always look after Colin, my man.
Somebody's got it. I've had enough. Okay, stat game. We're going to love this because Harry Maguire netted his 8th goal for the club on Tuesday. Now, I've been doing myself a little bit of research like I like to do. I enjoy seeing where that puts people on the goal scoring charts. And he has scored, as I say, 8 goals. We have 3 defenders in the last 30 odd years who have scored 8 goals for this football club. So as there's 3 defenders and there's 3 of you, I'm going to give you each a guess as to one of those defenders who also scored 8 goals for Manchester United. So, John, you can go first. Pick a defender. I'll tell you if he's on the list.
Well, exactly 8 or at least 8?
Yes, 8.5, not 7.5, 8.
Vidic
was not on the list. No.
He's got more than that, hasn't he?
Dan, can you guess one of the 3?
Funnily enough, I was going to say Vidic. Wes Brown?
Wasn't Wes Brown. Nice thinking. Stu?
Well, it isn't Stevie Bruce because he scored 18 in one season, so it ain't Brucey. It's a difficult one, that. I was just trying to think who it's exactly 8 goals in the season, is it? We're talking about
in the season, just in their career.
In their career, it's a difficult one.
The question was one of the 3 defenders who scored 8 goals in the last 30 years.
Defenders, not centre halves.
Yeah, no, not centre halves as such. Defenders, anywhere along the back 4. One of them, I'll help you out. One of them was a left back / utility man. And the other 2 were definitely centre backs.
Everett.
Irwin.
Irwin, it was not Irwin, no.
Everett.
Not Everett. So let's have a look at some of the others we got. Smalling's been put in. It's not Chris Smalling. Martin Buchan, afraid not. Gary Pallister would have been a good shout. It wasn't.
What a player, Buchan.
Raphael. I'm sure he only scored like 1 or 2. There's no way he's
got a couple, didn't he?
Yeah. Heinz Baked Beans was a no. Said not Everett, not Stam. Wrong brother. It wasn't Gary, John. It was. Then he says Phil Neville. So Phil Neville got 8. Gary, just for fun and posterity, scored 7. So Phil actually got more than him. I will help you out now. The other 2. One of them was a Champions League 99 winner.
David May.
Yeah. And the last one had a brother called Anton.
Ferdinand. Rio
Ferdinand, absolutely. And just for the shizzles and jizzles, it was also the same number of goals that David Bellion and Jordi Cruyff scored for Manchester United. So there we go.
What a legend.
That's the name.
What a legend, Bellion.
So there you go. That was a little bit of fun for you. How about we come off of that fun and serious things back up again, John? We've spoken about Maguire. Obviously, Varane returned as well. How did you think that went as a partnership with Mr. Maguire? Because obviously with him coming back in, really, really, really good partnership. Maguire had a good game, obviously with Evans as well. Stu says it's not just about being with Evans, but having Varane back, do you think that was good? I mean, obviously it was good, but good to see one of our defenders back and giving a good performance is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think they look pretty solid together. I guess that's probably looks like that will probably be the centre back partnership going forward for the foreseeable. I don't think it doesn't look like Martinez is close to coming back anytime soon. I don't think, but yeah, obviously we've got two. There's plenty of height there with those two, so I think it should be a decent partnership. Whether the pace might be a bit of an issue in some games, but I thought they both looked solid on Tuesday.
No, absolutely. And Dan, I wanted to move it on a little bit as well to not just Varane, but also Scott McTominay, because Varane started, McTominay started. There's been a lot of chat about whether or not Scott McTominay should be starting matches or not. He's been our saviour for a few games, but he's also given away 2 penalties. So, yeah, first thing, how did you think Varane got on? But secondly, was that a penalty? Because I watch it again and again. The foot's high, absolutely, but he is going for the ball. It's also last-ditch defending, so I think you get away with it a bit more when it's in that sort of situation. But doesn't even touch the guy, yet the penalty is somehow given and ratified. So what was your take on that particular situation?
Yeah, well, I thought Varane played well. I think generally when Varane does play, we generally play better at the back when Varane plays, regardless. He's that good. As far as McTominay, last time I was on the show, it was just after the Brentford game, and I'm saying, let's give him a game. Let's put him in the team for a run of games and see how he gets on. And I know he scored against Sheffield United, but generally I think he's been relatively underwhelming. And I think he's probably showed that maybe he shouldn't be starting. He should be more of an impact sub. But for me, the penalty, I thought, you see these ones with the goalkeepers where they actually come out and physically punch people and they don't give anything. And then he hasn't even touched him and they've gave it. And it's like, to be fair, I can see why he's gave it. But then I watched the Chelsea game at the weekend, and you had Onana against Wolves earlier on in the season, and they're actually wiping people out and they're not giving anything. And McTominay doesn't touch him and they don't give it. So I just don't get the balance.
It did feel a bit strange. John, just going to ask you about the McTominay pen. Did you think it was from your front row seat and the heated seats and a front row hot dog stand giving VIP treatment that you seem to get? Padded seat was the word I was after.
No, there's nothing like that there. No, unfortunately. I was struggling to see it. I sit slightly closer to the other goal, so it was all a bit of a melee in there, wasn't it? There was, they were struggling to clear it, and obviously saw the Copenhagen player go down. I didn't initially think there was very much contact at all, but looking on the replay, you can see he's had a sort of big swing, McTominay has, and not really got nowhere near the ball. So I suppose nowadays, in that situation, the attacking players, going to go down, and I suppose really the referee's not got a lot of option, I don't think, other than to give it, unfortunately.
Interesting. Stu, it's going to be interesting to see your point on this. We've got a little bit of a double take for you. Feel free to talk about Varane if you want to. Stu's asked, not Stu, your Stu. Simon's asked, why isn't Garnacho starting more games? Because he doesn't get it personally. But Box has put in the modern day game, it's going to be a pen, unfortunately. We've mentioned Bobby Charlton. I think if that happened back in their day, they'd have been sent with their tail between their legs, wondering why it is they've fallen on the floor without being touched. But penalty for you?
John's right, and Dan is, Dan's, opinion of it. They're both right. The issue you got to look at it twofold. If I'm the striker or I'm the opposing player, and McTominay lifts his foot up that high, I'm dipping my head straight away. I'm just going to dip my head. I'm going to get kicked in the face, or it's going to get close to me, which is a penalty for a high foot. You're always going to get that in Europe anyway. Any foot that goes across above the groin, to just above chest area, you're going to get a high foot, from a European ref. Whether we agree with it or not, that's what you're going to get. And this is what annoys me about footballers, because you should have the brain to know and understand you shouldn't be going anywhere near that. You let the guy try and take it on his chest or control it. Now, if he takes it on his chest, it's going to bounce at least a yard, which should then give you the chance to intercept. If he's clever enough to drop it directly to his feet, you can still just block tackle him. You can still put your foot in front of him. But to actually go, because the thing is, he'd had to duck, and he was never going to score with a head from there, even if he tried it. It just wasn't going to happen. So I think McTominay's got to look at himself and say, use my brain. But he shouldn't have been on the pitch anyway at that stage.
I think maybe he was just a bit over-eager because he was so desperate to make sure they won, and that's what it was, just a rush of blood, trying to clear the ball, and that's what you mean. He hasn't thought it through.
Look, there's an argument to say that, but at the elite level of football, you can't be fuzzy-headed. You have to be clear at every stage of the game. Every time you touch the ball, every time you're defending, where you position yourself, when do you walk, when do you stay, that type of thing. You have to have that already buttoned down. So you've got to really be careful. So for me, yeah, exactly. Connor's right. So for me, I just think, I kind of think he just brought it on himself. But for me, he should have been hooked at half time anyway. I think Amrabat getting hooked over him. Look, Amrabat was okay. Average. Maybe McTominay was slightly better in the first half. He had maybe a few more transitions than what Amrabat did. But there's all this clamber. You see, this is the problem with not just our fan base, by the way, but fan base says for all clubs is, McTominay scored 3, he's got to start. Why? If he doesn't fit the narrative, if he doesn't fit that game, then you don't start. And look, we should have been playing Eriksen from the start. And if he blows himself out by 60 minutes, fair enough. Then you can bring McTominay on. But Eriksen would have lifted us enough to potentially, maybe we go in at 1 goal up in half time. Maybe we sneak a second on 55, 58 before Eriksen has to go. What he did was, Amrabat he just couldn't get into the game because nobody was, finding him. The way that Copenhagen played, they almost suffocated Amrabat, which, they will do. When teams come to Old Trafford, they try and suffocate the play, and so they shouldn't. They did. They suffocated him. So I think, for me, if McTominay plays Sunday, I think City will be happy. I think we're going to have a massive problem Sunday because Simon will be able to tell us, but I think Rodri's back. Or is it? But I don't know if he's suspended for the Premier League or not. So Simon will be able to tell us. I know he played last night, didn't he? But I don't know if his suspension's still going in the. And if we, if Rodri is back, then McTominay's not going to work for us. We need somebody who can open up the City defence. The other thing you've got to bear in mind, when McTominay's on the pitch with Amrabat or Casemiro, you're suffocating Bruno. You need Eriksen to unlock Bruno. So there's a multitude of things for me, and I don't think Scott should have been in second half. He wasn't on the pitch when they given away the penalty. Maybe we would have been a bit more solid. I don't know. One other thing, Akanji's out, is he? Okay. One other thing about Varane, by the way, thought he was really, really good. I think him and Maguire are striking up a nice partnership. I gave Maguire a slightly better score by virtue of his thunderbolt of a header, which by having to hold a player off and stoop to head the ball down, phenomenal finish. It was a great finish. I thought Varane was he looked good. He looked better, I think, than any time this season. So maybe that rest, that injury, maybe he's fully over his injury. I think it's a good centre back partnership. If we make sure Reguilon plays Sunday, we could do Wan-Bissaka back, but obviously we're going to have Dalot. We should be okay with that 4. But McTominay, no, not for me.
There we go. And obviously the penalty occurred, and we said it was the second penalty that he's given away in a couple of weeks. The first one Obviously, you couldn't really have a go at him for too much. Yes, he did put his shoulder down, but I don't think he meant to handball it as such. But regardless, the penalty was given. And John, at this point in time, I can only imagine what's running through your head, sat there on the ground. Everybody must have been thinking, well, there we go, typical Man United. We had 3 points. We're going to walk away from this with a draw. All that negativity until Andre Onana's right hand just absolutely pulls us right out of the mud. And all of a sudden it goes from being just another one of those days for Manchester United to automatically a glorious European night under the lights at Old Trafford.
Yes, it's the fine margins of football, as is the cliche. I think there was a sort of a feeling of sort of disbelief to start with when sort of everybody realised that he'd given the penalty. Then I think there was probably a bit of hope that maybe that VAR will intervene and possibly overturn it, because that sort of went on for a little while, but very rarely does when it's given on field, that they tend to overturn it. And then when it came to the the penalty itself, it probably wasn't the best struck penalty. It wasn't really particularly powerful or in the corner, but it was still a fantastic save given those circumstances. Obviously the reaction from the stadium was just incredible. Really, it was a fantastic moment, and it was something that Onana needed to do to get his confidence back and make him feel better after he's had a very indifferent start to the season, shall we say.
And yet, Danny's right, isn't he? It has been a tricky start for a goalkeeper that was sold to us as being this progressive goalkeeper that we were going to need, this sweeper system type goalkeeper. And, his distribution, as we mentioned before, was never the question. It was just whether or not he was actually going to start saving. And over the last few games, we've seen a much better Andre Onana, I think, in terms of his shot stopping, in terms of keeping that ball out of the back of the net. But that penalty save, I just remember, any fan of this show will know I was a massive fan of David De Gea. I love the guy. But you put him in front of a penalty, I never felt like he was going to save it, even though he was the best shot stopper that we've had in the last 20 years. But Onana saved it. What was it like for you? Because I just remember screaming my little socks off.
Well, I was sat watching it with my mate, and we were sat in it. I was like, it'll just be like him to save this. Said he's been at fault for a few goals, especially in the Champions League so far. And I thought, just the night, the occasion, I just thought it was the first time we've had a penalty against us in a while where I've went, I think he'll save this. Like you say, you used to De Gea, and it was already a goal when most of the time you're thinking, well, he never gets near them. So, but I did actually say out loud that I thought he would save it. I don't know, just the occasion with Sir Bobby looking down, I just thought there's something about tonight, and I think he might save it. And I did read on social media that apparently a few people had called it as well, like Skulls had called it. Rio Ferdinand put it on Twitter saying the same. It was just the way the night went. You thought, yeah, it's written in the stars for that to happen.
It was brilliant. And I think that the bit that I loved the most about it was TNT showed a video of Peter Schmeichel watching that. And obviously he is the Dane, the great Dane, I called him because that's what he was. And he just gets so excited. He's properly screaming, just like he used to when he was the one saving the penalty. It sort of took us back to when he saved that penalty against Arsenal, when everybody was thinking that was game over, and he just the raw. Absolutely loved it. It was just one of those nights where United felt united, which is always wonderful. Stu, feel free to have your say on this, but I've got a slight change to the question for you, because obviously we've been talking about Onana. There was, can I call it news? It's not really been backed up by anything. Rumours that for while Onana is away, that we might potentially give David De Gea a contract so that he's able to come back and take Onana's place if he goes off to the Cup of Nations. Now, I feel like this is a load of hooey, if I'm honest with you. I can't see how we'd be bringing somebody in who's not played football, let alone top-level football, since he left us in the summer. So, yeah, how would you feel about that if we brought in David De Gea again as a replacement when we've already got, a replacement on the bench, albeit one that hasn't actually started for us yet?
I can't see it being true. I mean, you never know in football, do you? And you never know with our club under this current regime. But I can't see it being true. I mean, this Bayadou, however you pronounce his surname, should be a decent keeper. In fact, I'd play him at Galatasaray away by virtue of the fact he's played at Galatasaray. He knows what it's going to be like. He knows the atmosphere, and I would play him away, and I think we'd get a result there. He's played for Turkey 100 odd times as well, so he's clearly a talented keeper. So I don't kind of understand the links with De Gea. If Ten Hag is worried about him not having any kind of game time, then give him game time. He could have played him a couple of times already this season. He's chosen not to. So if he's worried about that, then you give him game time. So I can't see too much in it. But then again, as I say, you just never know with our club. If that is the case, you need to bring him in now. You need to get him up to speed, ready for if and when Onana goes in January to the Cup of Nations. So on Onana, by the way, in the penalty save, sometimes in life you've got to step up. You've got to do your job, and fair play to him. He's stepped up. I think Dave has made a really good point. I think he has had his positional play adjusted because he's doing less dicking about with the ball at the back and concentrating more on what he's there for, and that's keeping goal. So it's one of those for me. I was delighted that he made the save, but I don't want to sound too Roy Keane-esque by any stretch of imagination, but everybody has a job to do when they play football, and that's his job. Now, I'm not a goalkeeper. I've never faced a ball from 12 yards. I've put a few pens away and I've missed a few. As a goalkeeper, you can't win. It doesn't matter whether you save it, because chances are you won't save the next 8. So it's just one of those. So we needed it. There's absolutely no two ways about it. And I was delighted to see it. It was a good save because it was right hand. So it was a good save. But actually, I think John's right. I don't think it was the greatest pen anyway. I mean, I saw, which I couldn't quite believe. I saw some of the Copenhagen players, don't worry about it, mate, and all this. What the fuck are you doing? Don't fucking dick about with it. Fucking 100 miles an hour. Their goalkeeper, and just out of interest, their goalkeeper got a face mask. Not once do we ever pepper his face with a ball. You have to do stuff like that occasionally. People are looking at it and think, what are you doing that for? Get him off his game. You do anything possible to get him off his game. Elbow him. Get stuck in there when he's in the corner, Because I tell you, if you get an elbow on that, it's going to fucking hurt. But we don't do anything like that. We don't. So, look, I was pleased for Onana, but he has looked miles better, miles more assured last couple of games. But I think Dave's right. I think he's had his wings clipped, and he's been told by the goalkeeping coach or by Ten Hag, concentrate first and foremost, keeping goal, to redevelop your other side of the game after that. I think it's also helping Maguire, by the way, having somebody he can rely on to, if he is beaten for pace, same with Varane, if he is beaten for pace, having somebody who's at least can be alert enough to come out and clear the danger. So really interesting. But I don't see anything in the De Gea. Would he come back anyway? I mean, if you got a phone call off Richard Arnold, would you really come back? Who knows?
He was sharing it on Twitter, wasn't he, this afternoon? De Gea,
yeah, he put an emoji on, didn't he? A winky emoji or a
little bit. He's not allowed to say what he's meant to think, so just people make of it what they will. It could just as easily be a win because you know what the papers are like, lads.
Yeah,
So, you know, it could be anything.
we'll see. We'll see. Time will tell on that. Won't it?
Jennifer would like him back, though, as we've said there. She's shouted it from the rooftop. She'd be delighted. Personally, I'm with you, Stu. Could be in there the minutes. That's what we brought him in for. Otherwise, what was the point in bringing him in at all? Okay, well, I wanted to have a quick chat just about the state of play, because there was some talk when we were talking after the game at the weekend about whether or not we would even want to remain in the European competitions if we ended up going to the Europa League. Now, we're in that spot at the moment. 3 points for us, 4 points obviously for Galatasaray, just the one for Copenhagen, and of course Bayern Munich absolutely running away with it. We would assume, would we not, John, that Bayern Munich are going to beat Galatasaray again, or at least get a draw. You would imagine that. And you would hope, therefore, that we go and get the 3 points against Copenhagen. If we do that, we'll be on 6. It's all going to come down to that game against Galatasaray, really, isn't it? If that was the case, we could be in a position where if we want to qualify for the Champions League, we've got to go to Turkey, of all places. Goodness, we've seen that so many times. We've got to go to hell and back and try and bring back 3 points. How confident are you feeling that the Champions League journey can continue? Or do you think we're going to be going less to hell and more to hell in a handbasket?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think even the playing Copenhagen away. Our away form's not not been very good for quite a while now, domestically or in Europe. So if we get something over there, then it gives us a chance. But then, like you say, the chances are that we've got to win away to Galatasaray, which is, as we know, very sort of hostile atmosphere. One of probably the most well known in the world for being a difficult place to play. So and then of course the last game is at home to Munich, which we don't want to be going into that game where we absolutely have to win to get a second place. So basically, yeah, we need to win these 2 away games. I think it is going to be very very difficult. So I wouldn't be too surprised if we're back playing on a Thursday night after the New Year, sadly. But you never know.
You do never know. It sounds like Dave might have just said that we're not going to win the Champions League. It appears that what he says is the opposite of what happens. So thanks, Dave, for that one. Dan, John mentions there that it's not the best of atmospheres when you go there. But let's be honest, when we get to Galatasaray, it's going to be tough. But as far as the welcome goes, it's going to be about as welcome as a turd in a swimming pool, isn't it?
Yeah, I think obviously most games in Turkey are hard, aren't they? And I remember, was it Champions League a few years back where we played Istanbul, I don't know how you pronounce it, Başakşehir or whatever, and we went there and got beat, and someone scored from the halfway, like they ran from the halfway line right through the defence. And I just think even just Copenhagen away as well, I think our away form, leaves a lot to be desired, and I think we just need to focus game by game. And I think if we get the win against Copenhagen, might give us that bit of confidence. But after what I've seen of Copenhagen the other night, I'm not even sure we could go there and get a comfortable win either. I think Galatasaray away, it will come down to that game. But I'm with John. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we're playing on a Thursday night, back to Thursday, Sunday in the new year. It wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, they're both right, aren't they, Stu? And it's one of those where it is going to be a tough one. The Copenhagen game specifically, you would hope now that with them being on 1 point, they know their only chance of even Europa League football is to get some points, preferably 3 for them, against somebody. They might feel like we're their best opportunity to do that. So if Copenhagen came out a bit more, do you think that would actually suit us a bit more and therefore give us the opportunity to catch them on the counter and hopefully, I can't even believe I'm saying this about Copenhagen, but nick the 3 points?
Yeah, look, Copenhagen are going to have to come and play. That's the beauty of being away from home. Actually, Galatasaray will have to come and play as well, but the problem is they've got the players that can really damage you and hurt you. I think Icardi's netted something like 12 or 13 goals already this season. Zaha's just finding a little bit of form. But it's up to us. You've got to get on the front foot on these games. If we go in there and we try and defend for 25, 35 minutes, we will come unstuck. The best thing for us to do is go at it and try and get an early goal in both legs, Galatasaray in particular, as well as Copenhagen. I think Copenhagen are good, but I don't think they're great up front. I don't think that they're as clinical as somebody like Mauro Icardi is likely to be. They've got a brilliant team, Galatasaray, when you go through their individual players. Copenhagen are very good. There's no two ways about it, and it will be a very, very tricky one. But we've got the potential. If we kind of just sort ourselves out early doors, right from the kickoff, and just go at them and try and do what they did to us, try and suffocate them in the first 10, 15 minutes, we should find our way into the game a lot quicker than what we did on Tuesday night. So I think for me, I get what you guys are saying. I think that's a fair assessment that we might get a draw out of each of those two. But bearing in mind, don't forget, Galatasaray got to play Copenhagen yet, and they've also got to play Bayern Munich. So we may just need a draw on match day 6, and if we do, we should do it at home. I thought we were as good as Bayern Munich in parts in the Allianz Arena. They've got a couple of really good, solid players. We didn't get a hold of Musiala at all, did we? And that young lad Tell came on and finished it well. But we had the resilience to come back twice in that, 3 times in that match. And so we just need to show this resilience away. I think if we get the Copenhagen win, Galatasaray lose, Galatasaray are going to have to come at us as well. And that should give us the opportunity to maybe snatch a 1-0, maybe a 2-1 win away. But we've got to start finding Højlund a bit better than what we're doing, because he is an exceptional player, I think. Really got the potential to put up similar numbers to what Ruud did, Ruud van Nistelrooy. If we can find him, if we can find his game, he's up to speed with his rhythm, his movement, his power, his pace, all great. We just need to start finding him. So I'm going to go slightly opposite and say we'll make it through by the skin of our teeth, but we'll make it through.
It's interesting, and it is interesting. In all 3 games, just the 1 goal in it. Obviously 4-3 with Munich, 3-2 with Galatasaray, and then we won 1-0 against Copenhagen. So all very tight.
Have you seen a comment? Sorry.
I was about to come back to this one for you. A little comment for you, Stu.
Brilliant.
A bit of research. Apparently, the weight of the ball back in the 60s is the same weight as today, 14 to 16 ounces, dry weight, doesn't give it wet.
Wow.
Amazing. As I tell you, wet, it'll probably be double wet, because they were really, really horrible football. The leather was, I'm surprised about the weight actually, because the leather was massively thick at that time, and the stitching was really thick.
And that's it, innit? It was the slap that you got from the ball. We all played when we were in the playground with that football that just had the bit of it just wobbling off. Effectively,
you got laces. Don't forget.
Yeah, so much more than the nice sort of polished ones that you play with.
It had laces as well, by the way. These are some of the the balls that Charlton would have been playing had laces, and they they would have hurt. That's why the boots were slightly above the ankle to kind of protect you, from your striking foot. But that's really interesting. Really interesting. That.
Well, there we go. So, Dave, providing you've been looking at the right sites, here we go. You caught us all out a little bit there. Real pig bladder.
It was
back in the day, and they absolutely were. So there we go. John Commode said we need to beat Copenhagen away. You'd expect Bayern to beat Galatasaray. You would. We could then go to Galatasaray, and a win would see us through. You say that it might, providing we've beaten Copenhagen. If we don't beat Copenhagen, we're leaving that door open. It becomes a last-ditch thing with Bayern. So I suppose really my last question before we wrap things up here this evening. Obviously, we all want Champions League. I'm not going to ask a stupid question like, what would you rather, Champions League or Europa League? But what I am going to ask is sort of the tail end of the question that was brought up at the weekend, which was, if we're in that situation with the way the squad is at the moment, the injuries that we've got, all of those sorts of things, would you rather, and I know it's a really crap question in some ways, but would you rather we got in the Europa League, maybe had a little run and the opportunity to still be in a trophy that we could potentially win, or would you rather actually we just finish bottom, come out of Europe altogether, and then concentrate on the domestic things and the fact we wouldn't have to do, as you said, Dan, Thursday, Sunday, which to me doesn't really feel all that different to Wednesday, Saturday. But there we go. John, which one would you go for? Europa or Unopa?
I think I'd rather still be in a European competition than out of it altogether. I know last season we probably were a bit more on the fortunate side with regard to injuries. We didn't really particularly get any, till towards the back end of the season. Whereas this year we perhaps, obviously have a lot more injuries and might not have the squad might struggle to cope more. But I still think I'd rather be in some sort of European competition than be out of it. I mean, we could be, out of other competitions. Instead, obviously, we got basically to the final of both domestic cups and quarterfinals of Europa League. So we went a long way in sort of every competition last year and coped pretty well with it. So yeah, I would personally like to see us still in Europe rather than even if it is only the Europa League.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, we did also have spare fullbacks as well, but that's something we can only dream of at the moment. I agree with you for what it's worth. I would always rather be in a competition than not. But they were quite pessimistic at the weekend. They'd much rather we weren't, some of them. Dan, which side do you fall on?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I'd rather be in it, but I'll be honest, when Copenhagen had that penalty on Tuesday night, I had it all ready to say, well, at least we're going to finish bottom and we don't have to worry about playing Thursday, Sunday. But obviously now the penalty's been saved and we've got 3 points on the board. I'm like, no, I'd rather be in it, even if it's on a Thursday night. There's still them opportunities to play, like we played Barcelona last year, teams like that. If it's just so happens we're playing Thursday, Sunday. I agree. There's not a great deal of difference between Wednesday, Saturday. Just hopefully we can get some injured players back, get that depth back in the squad. And there's no reason we can't have a good go at winning it if we are in it.
No, absolutely. I think I agree. Mr. Willie, where would you go?
Champions League, really. It's where you need to
the options, mate, was it? Come on now, play the
game. Well, you're going to be in Europe, haven't you? But if you're going to be in Europe, you want to be in the Champions League. Look, I always approach any game exactly the same. We have to win, irrespective whether you win or lose. You've got to win. And then let's see where it takes you. So we're on a 3-game winning streak. Wow. If we can stretch that to 7, which is going to be exceptionally difficult, then it will settle us down and it will take us where we need to be. And that will be in Europe of some description. Because we're not going to, I don't think we'll finish bottom of our league anyway. I think we'll scrape through into the Champions League. Once we get into the Champions League, we can forget about it then till February, March time, and then we can reconvene. By which time we may or may not have strengthened. In January, we may or may not have a new billionaire part owner of the club, or we may or may not have a super rich billionaire who owns the club 100%. A lot can happen. I think Ten Hag's job and the players' job right now is to get us through to January. That's the job. And then, but make sure whatever we do, we are in Europe of some description. That's what I would like to. I'd like to see, but I'd rather it be Champions League. But looking at it, the more glamorized are likely to be in the Europa League again. AC Milan are probably likely to be in the Europa League, on things of that nature. And that's what you want. You want to see the real heavyweights go at it, even if it's not a Champions League. Because there's some brilliant ones last year, wasn't there, in the Europa League? If you think about it, Barcelona were in there. We were in some brilliant. AC Milan were in there. Some brilliant brilliant matches, and you want to see that. It's all to do with modernism, I'm afraid, Baz. With all due respect to Newcastle, there's no glamour in Newcastle versus Real Madrid, but there is glamour in AC Milan versus Real Madrid. That's the type of thing for me. No offense to Newcastle, not having to go at Newcastle, but it's just the way that it is.
Absolutely. Certainly, they've got to build their legacy in Europe. They've not had that opportunity yet, and they're doing that now. So that in 20 years' time, maybe there'll be people sat around in some sort of Newcastle podcast talking about the heroes of 2023. But we shall see.
Why not? Although they got a dose of what Champions League football's all about, didn't they? Last night, Dortmund came and scraped a win. That's the elite level of football, isn't it?
Sure.
Our girls had it, didn't they, against PSG? PSG just had a bit more know-how, and that's how they got through. They weren't better than us as a unit, but they just had that little bit more know-how on how to do it. And we've got to find that know-how again, haven't we?
For sure. It will definitely be interesting. And like you say, we all would want to be in the Champions League. That's where we're going to be hoping that we are. That's where we'd like to be. But if not, we will take the Europa. We'll take it as it goes. And either way, whichever competition we're in, as you rightly said there, Stu, we'll have until February before we have to play again. So that does give us a chance to restock the shelves, shall we say, that we pick from.
Actually, just before you close, sorry, both the lads made a great point anyway. By the time we get round to phase 2 of Europe, we should be fully stocked and quoted with, hopefully a fully functioning squad. When you consider what the lads have had to put up with, the amount of games we played last season, I'm amazed all our squad hasn't struggled with the pre-season that we did as well. So interesting.
Very much so. I'm not sure what's happened to Dan. He's hiding away there.
He's had enough.
Can't see you, I can hear you. So that's good news for the question I'm about to ask.
Said, Steve, shut up.
Indeed. NT has just pointed out, not to sound like an Arsenal fan, I'd rather we finish well in the league. Playing Thursday nights can really derail a season. I still don't think that's any different to playing on a Wednesday night. If that's your argument, we need to come out of Europe altogether. For me, there's no point in saying that it's going to be one way or the other, whether it be Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So, I just don't agree. But that's me. You can absolutely have an opposite opinion. That's allowed around these parts. My last question, then, just before we drop off, is literally just a 2-word answer. Unless, of course, your player's got 3 names. So it happens. Eric Jemba, for example. But it was a question I asked at the weekend, and I really liked it. I saw it on Twitter, and I thought I'd ask the question again. If you could pick one player from the Manchester United squad now who could be injury-free for the rest of their career, guaranteed, like a magic wand's come over it, which player would you pick? Now I'm going to give these guys just about a minute, just have a little think about which name we're going to come up with, because I've just dropped that on them. And during that time, I'm going to let you know where we are, because Saturday, we are not going to be around for Saturday Night Live. There's no Saturday Night Live. We are hoping to move that onto the Sunday. So could be an emotional reaction to the City game. We'll see how we get on. We haven't done one of those at all for United for a while, so that could be entertaining. But we'll be definitely back on Sunday for that show. Now, that should have given enough time for Mr. John Neville to decide who he is saving. Who are you going to ensure remains in a protective bubble for the rest of their career?
I think I'll go for Raphael Varane.
Interesting. And because?
Well, the fact that he's we do seem to miss him when he's not around, and he does seem to be quite injury prone. So I think for somebody that you could rely on at the back to be there every week, will be one of your centre halves, I think. So I'll go with him.
Very nice. Okay, Simon Davis has gone for Garnacho. He's clear he's got a bit of a thing for Garnacho. he's called out for a few times so far. Hands off, Simon. You can't have him. He's a red. Dave going for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. See, that was another 3-worder. I told you it depends on the player that you've got. Dan, who are you choosing?
Funnily enough, again, I was going to say Varane. But
Honestly,
I'll
John
go
Day,
I'll go for the guy next to him. Then I'll go for Martinez. I think as far as playing out from the back and playing the way that our manager wants us to play, I think Martinez is just as important to the team as anybody else. And I think if he can stay fit, and hopefully if John's right as well and Varane can stay fit, you know, I think we'd definitely be able to implement the style of play that the manager wants.
Very true indeed. Stu, I know this goes against everything you ever believe in because you're a realist, but if you could just finish this off by humouring me for this question, that'd be grand.
I would go with Aaron Wan Maguire because I can't have two, so I'll amalgamate them into one. It would be Aaron Wan-Bissaka for me as well, and he's an absolutely huge miss for us. And I'll take the lads' points about Martinez and Varane, but on current form, you'd quite like to see Maguire injury-free as well, because on current form, he is as good as... He's probably played better than Martinez has, but let's be fair, Martinez has been injured. He was never right. He came back way too early from his injury. That's why we're not going to see him till February onwards, I don't think. And same with Varane, if you can keep him fit, which is great. There's one thing about Maguire, very rarely injured. I mean, he does get, he has been injured. Every player does, but he's very rarely injured. But I think we've missed Wan-Bissaka a lot. I don't think we've missed Martinez, no two ways about it, but we haven't, if that makes sense. Because at the moment, we're not doing any better or worse than when Martinez was playing. But I think we're missing Wan-Bissaka big time. I really do. So it's AWB for me.
Interesting. Very, very interesting that everybody went for a defender as well. Luke Shaw was mentioned at the weekend. So amongst United fans, it's very clear that at the minute it's our defence that is the concern, shall I say, in terms of making sure players are still available. Dave said AWB's backed up his answer, though, saying he's the only player of other managers' buys. He's the one who's most improved. NT finishing with, if we could reset a run, though, it would be Leacher. So there we go.
I can see it. Hoyland as well. Somebody mentioned Hoyland.
Yeah, somebody did mention Hoyland. That was NT as well.
Yeah, great shot.
So there we go. Hopefully this weekend will be the one where we always seem to have someone in these big games. Rashford's done it before. Martial's done it before. Big derby games. Somebody seems to come to the fore and net something somewhere. Wouldn't it be amazing if Hoyland got his first Premier League goal against the Blues? Simon would love it. Probably love it as well, so that'd be interesting, but we shall see. It has been an absolute delight. I've really enjoyed this evening. It's flown by. Great conversation, which is what this is all meant to be about. We're not about shouting and screaming and trying to get clicks and likes. We'd rather have a good show that 10 people watch and enjoy listening to than one that 1 million people watch. But we'll just keep shouting at each other. Sensible debate and conversation. That's what we like here. And it's been a delight to have it. Stu, thanks again for popping along again. And John, lovely to have you back on. Dan, do you want to have a quick shout out for your little podcast that you do as well?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's called Be the Best Version of Yourself. It's on Spotify. It's my talking through my gambling addiction, my epilepsy and mental health struggles, and just try and end the stigma around that subject. And yeah, hopefully help as many people as possible.
And I would say very, very topical at the moment with the things happening around. I'm going to might get the name wrong. Tonali, yeah. Yeah, that's the one. So yeah, lots there, I'm sure. So check that out. It's a good listen. And hopefully you've enjoyed this one. Well, if you have, there's more watch ones from before. If not, we'll see you on Sunday when hopefully Simon will be crying into his beer. Have a fantastic few days. We'll see you all at the weekend. Good night.
Thank you.